Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to today's class. Today we are going to analyze and see some lines as Caro Kann. Okay. Caro Kann is an opening which starts with white playing the move e4 and black playing the move c6. The idea behind the move c6 is to play the move d5 and to stop white from gaining any access of controlling the center. So after c6, when white plays the move d4, gaining full control of the center, black plays the move d5. Okay, after d5, white has a couple of choices in this position. As you can see, the e4 pawn is under attack, so white has to deal with this threat. So there are a couple of choices that white has in this position. The first move is to play the classical variation of the Caro Kann with the move knight c3. The other choice that white has in this position is to push forward with the move e5. We will see each by turn. Okay. Let's start with the move with the move e5, the advanced variation of the Caro Kann. Okay, after move e5, this is also known as the passive bishop. So black intends to move the bishop out before closing with the move e6. So let's say white plays the move g4. This is also known as the Tal variation, which white plays. Okay. Against g4, you could also try to play the move bishop e4, but that's bad because of the move f3. Okay, so playing the move bishop g6 also makes more sense. So now let's say after h4, we have to play the move h5 to prevent the bishop from getting trapped. The other choice that white has in this position is to play the move knight e2. This is also a standard line. Let's say we play the move e6. Now this threat, because once we play the move, let's say here, now knight f4 comes with a more dangerous threat. And once we move, and this is also a very familiar line, and this is hard, not bad but hard. We have to break with the move c5. We are down a pawn, but currently our pieces are more active in this line, and also this knight is slightly misplaced. We have to break with the move c5, and let's say c3, knight c6, queen here, our other knight comes into action, and this is slightly better for black. And although white has gained a pawn in this line, but it's still, the knight is passive, and it's not clear that where is white going to castle, because white has already pushed his kingside pawns, and the queen side is also slightly weak. So black has a clear plan of developing pieces and castling queen side. So okay, let's go back. So that's why bishop f5 is slightly more risky in this line to play. There's also a move, let's say h4. This is also a move, and against h4 we have to play the move h5, because if we don't and play a random move, many GMs also got trapped in this line with the move g4. And once you move, it doesn't matter where you move. Let's say first bishop e4, then f3. And this bishop will soon get trapped. So we have to go bishop g6, and then this traps our bishop. So that's why h5 is a mandatory move. Yeah, h5 is a must move. And now let's say there is an interesting trap in this line. Bishop g5, queen b6, and bishop d3. This is also a very standard line, since many have encountered in the online games. Many black players will grab, but this is slightly bad, because we could grab the rook, but then e6 is coming, and this position is black will soon end up in trouble. So that's why taking the bishop is bad. Also taking this pawn is also bad because of knight f3, and white will gain a huge development. Also this pawn is under attack. We could take, but but that would get very risky in this line because of knight bd2, and this is clearly winning for white despite being a pawn down. So what we should do in bishop g4 line, Well, we could play the move queen b6. This is a good move, but after bishop d3 we should take, and let's say queen takes. We should focus on our development with the move e6. Grabbing this pawn is just bad, and it could be risky because of queen c3 and gaining the rook will gain. You could also take this pawn in this position right now. Let's say queen takes. Queen takes b2 is good, but then queen c3. Let's say queen c1 because it doesn't, because the bishop will just capture your queen. It doesn't work. So grabbing this pawn is just slightly risky, and since you are behind in development. And let's say after queen takes b2 there is also this dangerous line with the move e6. White just sacks his rook in order to gain a huge lead in development, and also a kingside attack. Knight f3 and whatnot. So that's the move bishop f5. Okay. There is also another move, not against the move e5, the move f3. This is also a move. Well, this is known as a fantasy variation of the Caro, which white plays. You could use this as a surprise weapon against your opponent because many players will not come prepared. Okay, so after f3, there are two responses that black has in this position. First, we could take, and let's say play the move. Let's see, takes, and then play the move e5. This is also one move. Okay, white simply can't take this pawn because of this check, and you lose everything. This pawn is under attack, and g3 is too bad because queen takes. White is losing a whole bunch of material in this position. So that's why taking this pawn is out of the question. So what should white do in this position? The only move is to play the move knight f3. That makes sense. Developing a piece. Okay. Any other move, let's say playing this move is also not good. Yeah, it's a main move, but after let's say bishop c4, black has to know a lot of theory in this line. The only move is to play the move knight b d7. Let's say you play the move knight f6. It's a losing move because of bishop takes f7. And then knight takes e5. Let's say knight f6, then bishop takes f7, king takes f7, and this move. And it's simply better for white. So you can't just fully develop your pieces with like this knight f6 because there are tactics flying around all over the board. So after bishop c4, the only way to avoid this bishop takes f7 move is to play the move knight b d7. Okay, after knight b d7, let's say white castles. And as you can see, it looks very scary because the rook, half open rook file, also the knight is coming with the move g5 with a discovered attack. So, but it doesn't have much attack if you know the theory. Okay, after knight f6, let's say here with the move, let's say white tries to take this pawn. It seems like that black has lost a pawn, but not really, because we could take the knight first, attacking the queen, and after queen takes, now we take back. And no matter how dangerous it looks, but there is no attack in this line. And believe it or not, it's black who is leading the position. Okay, so let's say after knight f6, the most common move is to play the move bishop g5. Well, against this move, we could simply take the pawn. And believe it or not, white cannot take this pawn, because if he does, then his queen is getting trapped. So the move bishop c5. So we are simply up a pawn. Okay, and white could try this move e5, but we could just take and then play the move knight takes e5. Well, it's risky, but we are simply attacking the queen, and let's say queen e2, then we play the move queen e7. Rook e1, yeah, rook e1 is also a move. Then bishop d6. Yeah, it looks scary. Rook e1, bishop d6, bishop f4, and let's say Knight fd7, yeah. No matter how hard, but white is soon going to be out of fuel in this line. Queen h5. Queen h5.
Queen g3.
Queen g3, queen e7, and somehow this piece is getting set. Also, there is f6 move. There is also this move, f6. And if queen takes g7, then we simply castle long. Yeah, it looks scary, but somehow white doesn't have that much resources to put pressure on this knight. Yep.
Queen takes g7, then she also
Check. Where is the check coming from? Yeah, knight f6. Yeah. Knight f3 check. Yeah. But this position is not that dangerous. We have gained a pawn. This pawn is just can't take because of this bishop c5. And also taking this pawn is also bad because we are going to castle long and then attack the king side with the move with g8. Okay, so let's go back. So that covers the fantasy variation. There is also one variation that known as the restless queen variation. Okay, let's go back. Yeah, with the move queen b6. It's also a line. Sorry. Knight e7 and castling. Knight f6. No, I think the restless queen variation starts with the king being on the center. Okay. After bishop g4. Let's say white grabs the pawn with the move in this position. Are we simply down a pawn in this line? Okay, it's black to play. Because if you simply exchange the queens, yeah, you could exchange the queen, but then knight d7, long castle, it's slightly better for black. Yeah. Yeah, queen f8, bishop d2 then. Queen c4. Queen c5. You are not really attacking this pawn because it's clearly defended. And also this move is also in the pawn. Instead of bishop d2, let's say queen a5 check. Instead of bishop d2, white could also block this pawn with a move here. This is also a move because if you take, yeah, but this is also slightly risky because if you take the pawn now, yeah, bishop c4, long castle, short castle, and this is, yeah, knight f6 and then short castle. Bishop c5 check doesn't help much because this bishop is slightly bishop c5 check. Okay. Yeah. But this position is also bishop b3, knight c4.
Knight c4,
yeah.
bishop coming on it.
No, knight c4 after rook e1. We have to guard the pawn with the move. Yeah, but
Bishop f4.
okay, yeah, this is also a line that black can play. So this pawn is not that free. We could all anytime grab that pawn. Okay, let's go back. Okay, that covers the fantasy variation. Okay. So now let's see the advanced variation of the Caro with the move e5. Okay, after e5 we already saw this move bishop f4. There is also one line that comes with the move c5. This is a very standard line. Many top players play this position with the move c5. The idea is to break through the center with the move, let's say c takes d4, and after that develop with the move knight c6. This is our main idea. And if let's say white grabs our pawn, then we simply play the move calm move with the move knight c6. And this pawn is slightly weirdly placed. Knight c6, let's say knight f3, bishop g4. Black is simply leading the game. After bishop g4, let's say bishop b5, then we simply play the move e6. And no matter how hard, there is one game that I played in the online, my opponent continued with the move b4. And it looks like that I am down a pawn, but not really, because I have this maneuver knight e7 to knight g6, and I will soon regain my pawn with the move rook c8 at some point, but not now. Okay, let's say after b4, knight e7, white short castles, and let's say knight f4, knight f5, and rook e1. Sorry. After castles, it's black to play. Okay, after not castles, bishop g5. Then I think
So the a5.
yeah, a5 is also a good move. Yeah, a5 that. And now after bishop takes, pawn takes, and c3, and let's say queen b8 and a3. You could just play on knight f5. Knight f5 is a good move. And whenever this h3 comes, we are going to take the knight. And our piece is slightly better in this position. We could also break through with the move f6 like French and get our bishop in the very active diagonal.
What if it takes knight?
Yep.
What if it takes the knight, like before playing e3?
Okay. In this position.
Before playing e3.
Okay. Bishop takes knight. Bishop takes knight.
Then
And then a3 or h. Okay, a3.
A3, yeah.
Okay, a3. Now we simply castle. Castle and instead when white plays now the move h3, let's say we are not going to take this knight. Instead we are going to preserve our bishop with the move bishop f5, because we are threatening to play the move f6 at some point and open up this long diagonal for our bishop. f6 bishop and then e5. This is a good position. f6, yeah, for black. f6 and we are attacking this e5 pawn twice with the queen and our pawn. There's no time to, let's say, yeah. So that's why, and if white takes, then bishop takes. And these bishops are monsters. We could just place our queen on the f4 square. This is a very good position. Let's say knight bd2. Knight bd2 is just blunders upon bishop takes c3. So it's not that simple how to continue. If queen b3, then we simply play the move e5, threatening e4. It's clearly better for black. So black is clearly down a pawn in this hand, but in the middle game, black just gets a huge counterplay. So that's why placing your pawn on the b4 is not that great, especially in the opening. So now let's see the classical variation of the Caro card that starts with the move knight c3. It's simply to guard the pawn on the e4, that's on the e4 square. Okay, since we have no other choice, we can't just develop our bishop on the g4 because the queen will just grab our bishop, and we couldn't just play knight f6 because of the move e5, and we have to go back. So what's the point in developing? So that's why the only move that makes sense is to take the pawn on the e4. Well, after knight takes, there are two choices that black has in this line. The Tartakova variation starts with the move knight f6. This is also known as the Tartakova variation. Okay, after let's say knight takes, okay, we'll cover this move. The first move that comes to mind is to play the move bishop f5. This is also a move. Well, you have to know this line because this line is always slightly better for white. After knight g3, bishop g6, and let's say knight f3. Now remember, we couldn't just play the move e6 in this line. Playing e6 is just bad because of the move h4. And after h6, knight e5. This is slightly just better for white in this position. And after bishop here, bishop d3. This position is a slightly better. Yeah, that's why the only move, we shouldn't play e6 in this line. The only move is to play the move knight e7, stopping, because whenever the knight jumps to e5, we are simply going to grab the knight. Okay, knight d7, and then if white plays the move, let's say h4 here, and after let's say bishop d3, no, sorry, h6, h5, bishop here. The game continues with the bishop d3. takes, and after knight f6, bishop f4. White slightly gets better in this line, especially the piece placement is literally very good for white. Also, white is just threatening to castle queen side, long castle. This position is slightly better. And if let's say knight d5, then simply blunders the bishop. Yeah, c4 comes later. After bishop d2, if e6, then white simply castles along or plays the move c4. c4 is also good. Simply castling is just clearly better. It's just plus 1.9 plus 1 as white. So that's why playing this line is slightly risky with the early bishop f5 line. Yeah, sorry. You have to know a lot of theory in this line. So now let's see the Tartakova variation of the Caro with the knight f6. The idea is to challenge this e4 knight immediately in the center of the board. And if let's say white retreats, then it doesn't, because we have this move bishop g4. And white has to play the move, let's say knight f3 or bishop e2. Okay. Now let's focus on if white takes our knight takes f6. Then we can take back. And in the middle game, black just gets a huge counterplay against the white's king side. After let's say e takes f6, the game continues with let's say knight f3. And you should note down that black is always the one who is going to castle first in this line. After bishop d6, bishop d3, it's black who has the first right to castle. And after let's say castling king side, knight d7, c3, rook e8, queen c2, c4 is also a line, yeah, knight f8, and the game goes on with the knight coming to g6, bishop e6, queen d7, and the game goes on. White just piles up against white's king side. Let's say bishop e3, knight g6, knight g6, rook here, bishop e6, and our threat is to play the move. Also, we could just play this move. Let's say, and after knight c6, we could just play the move bishop g4, threatening to take this knight immediately. And after let's say white moves or retreats, doesn't matter. If white tries to defend, then we simply play. And it's our pieces that are very aggressively placed on the king side, and there are some chances that black gets a king side attack, especially if the move h3 comes. It's just asking for itself. Bishop takes h3. You could just analyze this position in your home. It's clearly better for black because we have many pieces, and at some point our rook can also jump. Not this rook especially. We could just play this move here and then rook lift to this side of the board. It's just clearly better for black. I could show you one of my game that I played recently in this line against a close to a 1600 opponent, 1588. Okay. Not exact this position after let's say knight f6. My opponent took. After e takes f6, continued with the move knight f3, bishop d6, bishop d3, castle, white castle, the same exact position, knight b d7, c3, rook e8. My opponent played the move bishop e3 in this line, not queen c2. Okay, and after let's say knight here, knight f8. Now my opponent played the move queen c2, knight g6, and my opponent played the move h3, stopping bishop g4. So I had to play the move bishop e6, preparing queen d7. Okay, and let's say now my opponent played the move a3, because he is trying to play the move, let's say here, but then he's going to blunder this pawn. And at some point, though my bishop get trapped, would get trapped in this line, yeah, with the move b3. But I was not planning to play the move bishop takes a2. So that's why he is more careful with this move, let's say a3. Now I played queen d7. Yeah?
B3 not.
Sorry. Yeah?
B3 not.
b4.
B4 A4.
b4 just with the, I'm going to hit with the move a5. And you have to choose between b5 or let's say here. Just it's not that slightly good pawn structure. Expanding too early in the queen side. Okay, so the game continued with the move a3, queen d7. Now after queen d7, my opponent played the move. Okay, I'm sorry, I missed a move. Okay, wait a minute. Yeah, not queen c2. No, not queen c2. He played the move queen d2. I'm sorry. He played the move queen d2. And after, let's say, knight g6 and yeah, h3, bishop e6, now a3. Yeah, and after a3, now I played the move queen d7. And he could just sense that some pieces are all piling up on the king side, and also there are some possible sacrifices on the h3 square. So he decided to eliminate one of my piece. Let's say bishop takes g6. And after h takes g6, he played the move bishop f4. Just trying to exchange one of my pieces. But I thought this position for nearly 5 to 7 minutes in this position. And I came up with this move, g5. You see, when this pawn actually defends our king and also prepares against a counterplay against your opponent's king, we could just push our pawns and attack. g4 is also coming at some point, and it will burst open the white's king side. So my opponent decided to take, and I decided to take. You see, I lost my dark square bishop, but my queen is actually controlling the dark squares, and my bishops are actually controlling the light squares. So it's a reverse role. Okay, after queen d7, my opponent played the move rook a e1, and I played the move g6. Actually, my plan is to play the move king g7 and then rook h8, and continuously attacking the white king. And after here, after rook the g6, he decided to double up against this move. I followed up with my plan, and after here I played this move, rook h8. Actually, I'm not actually threatening to sack, but since this sacking now doesn't make sense because it's simply the h2 square is well guarded with the knight. So now after rook h8, my opponent thought for 25 minutes in this position and came up with a very interesting move. Yeah, 25 minutes, and played the move d5 in this line. It's actually a good move, very good move actually. The idea behind this move d5, see, as you can see that white's knight doesn't have that many great squares in this line, and it would get a very lovely square if the knight gets the d4 square, and the d4 square is currently occupied by white's pawn. So white just decided to give up this pawn just to get this knight on the lovely d4 square, just to get some counterplay. And now black has to be very careful in this line. And after d5, it's not that easy for black actually. We could just grab our pawn, but with what? Taking with the bishop is bad because of c4, and we lose a piece. So that's why the only move is to play the move. As ugly as it looks, c takes d4 is the only move. But then the knight comes, jumps to the d4 square. This is a very pre-planned sacrifice that my opponent came up with. I have to appreciate my opponent. It's a good move actually. And after knight d4, I can't just play rook here because it's just my king is just getting exposed in this line. I had to move the bishop because if I play this move rook a e8, then this is simply bad because my king is just completely exposed in this line. Yep. Sacrifice the bishop where? My rook is hanging. Sack the bishop where? This sacking here doesn't make sense. If we...
Before.
Okay. At which point?
After night.
Sorry.
Takes knight d4.
Knight d4, now what?
Yes, sir. Now continue. Can you continue the sacrifice?
Sacrifice at what? At which square? h3. Yeah, we could just sack, but the king is just, after rook e3, the king will escape. The king will escape through this path, and I just lost a piece. And just the king is just getting away. Let's say if I take, he is just simply going to take, and after I take, this knight f3, and there is knight. Yeah, also this move also comes. Rook e3 is also a good move. Rook e3 is also a good move. And if this, then this, and the king is somehow escaping. Yep.
Bishop takes e6.
Bishop takes e6. Right, it's bishop takes e6. Okay. Okay, my opponent was close to 1600. He couldn't have missed this. So,
After taking the bishop,
now
then that is the pawn. Then knight e6 check.
yeah, knight a6 and yeah, pawn takes e6 then. And where is white's counter? Rook takes. Yeah, then simply, and at some point we are going to invade with the move queen h2. And let's say knight e6 check. Pawn takes, and then rook takes. Check. Here.
Our king and this plus the line.
Yeah, then why would white sack his knight? White is just up a piece in this line. Why would white give up his piece? It doesn't make sense, na? Knight e6 just clearly giving up a piece for nothing.
The pawn up.
Yeah, also sacking the bishop is also not that great in this line. Because yeah, that's why after knight d4, playing the rook to e8 is also not that great. So I had to continue with the move bishop d7. So my opponent played the move rook e8. Now I have to be very, very careful in this line, because now knight e6 check is coming. It's a huge threat, knight e6 check, and somehow I am the one in trouble in this line. So I had to play the move king f8. I calculated for, let's say, 9 or 10 minutes in this line and played the move king f8 in this line. So right now there is no threat. After king e8, my opponent played the move c4. It's a trap because you can't just take this pawn because of knight e6 check and your queen is lost. You can't just take because of knight e6 check and your queen is just gone. So that's why I can't just take. Also knight b5 is also coming in this line and I don't want to trade this bishop. So that's why I had to play the move a6 in this line, stopping knight b5. And he actually made a not that great move in this line. He should have continued with the move c5. And the game is still complicated in this line. I had to play the move queen c7. So, but he made a very terrible choice by playing queen b4 in this line. And I don't have that many choices in this line. I have to trade queens because rook takes. If I don't trade and move here, then I am losing my queen. The discovered check. So I had to trade in this line. Let's say queen takes b4, pawn takes b4, and just simply playing rook e8. I'm not actually a fan of taking this pawn because it's a horrible pawn structure, and I'm later I'm going to win this pawn. So my opponent noticed that and played the move pawn to c5. But after this move, it's a bad move because I have this move rook h5. And somehow my rook is getting activated through h5. And my opponent thought for nearly, and let's say half an hour he thought for and came up with this move, because if he simply plays this move, I have this move rook c4, and this is attacked, this is attacked. So that's why he had to give up a pawn with the move g4, and I took this pawn and played the move h3, f3, just locking my rook. And it's a very, you can't just give a check here because you're getting a rook trapped with the move here. That's why checking is not that great, so I had to continue with here. And after this move, I'm not sure, my opponent continued with the move knight b3, if I'm not sure. Yeah. Knight b3, yeah. Now I played the move, I think f5 is what I played this time, if I'm not wrong. f5 or rook e8. Yeah, I played the move rook e8 in this line. Yeah, rook takes e8, my opponent traded, bishop takes e8, now played the move king g2 this line. And after bishop d7, I'm not sure what he played. He played king g3, I think, in this line. Now I continued with the move f5, and he blundered and played the move, let's say here, and yeah, rook takes g4. Rook takes g4 is also, but there is a small trap with this line because I am also threatening this. Yeah, and somehow my opponent fell for this trap. I don't actually remember, because he got checkmated on the x6 square, which I remember, but I didn't actually take this knight. I took that knight. Okay, but he played the move f4 in this line. Yeah, it's just simply loss for white in this position. And now you can see the power of these pawns. This pawn is just so strong in this line. So actually I ended up checkmating him on the f6 square, and he lost the game. So that covers the Tartakor variation. It's a very solid line that black can try playing, especially in the classical game. Okay. There is also a two knights attack in the Caro Kann, which white can play. Okay, e4, c6, d4, knight f3. The two knights attack starts with the move knight f3, d5, and now knight c3. Okay, after knight c3, the main move that black has is to play the move early bishop g4, and let's say h3. Now we take, and after queen takes, e6. We actually get a very solid pawn formation in this line. It's very solid, and there are two moves that white has actually. The move g3, it's a very solid line, fianchetting shooting our bishop and then castling short. There is another move that 90% players fall, is to play the move, let's say d4, and after, let's say here, black gets a very solid counterplay, because if you take with the knight, then the d4 pawn is hanging, and if you do take this pawn with the queen, then we are getting knight f6, a tempo, and it's a free flow development. Bishop d6 or bishop b4, black is actually okay in this line. So that's why d4 is not that great. The more popular move is to play the move d3. But against d3, there is also a trap that black has in this line, is to play the move bishop b4. We see now we are actually threatening the move d4. So white has to play the move bishop d2. But after bishop d2, we actually play the move d4 in this line. And now the knight cannot move anywhere else, because we simply take and ruin the castle structure. So the only move that makes sense is to play the move knight b1. And now the fun starts with the move queen b6, because every move comes with a threat. Now we simply take, and no matter how he captures, then queen takes b2, and then queen takes c2. Everything is just falling in this line. So let's say taking is just worse because of this. and after knight here, we could also play our knight. Taking this pawn is also not that great because of rook 8, and this rook is also coming to the 7th rank. Yeah, that knight d7 is also great. Knight d7 is threatening knight e5, and believe it or not, it's actually black slightly better. I wouldn't recommend taking this pawn. It's very risky. Queen takes b2 because of this. Yeah, we are simply, but we also have this check, and we can trade our queen forcefully this time. Takes, and then play knight d7, knight f6. Yep. King e2 is simply, let's say we simply play this bishop is just horrible piece. Yeah, also not to forget there is also a mating trade, the queen and the rook.
The knight
So
d7.
yeah, knight, that's why knight d7, and
Now rook d7, knight d7.
rook takes d7 doesn't work because of
Knight d7.
rook takes d7, king takes d7, and this doesn't work because of knight e7. And somehow we are surviving in this game. So that's why after knight d7, white has to do something about his development. We could also play our move, let's say knight e5, but then queen g3. That's why I think e5 is also good. e5 is good.
Knight c4.
Knight c4, yeah, knight c4, but
Then knight c4. Pawn and
also retreating the queen is also good, because the queen is just coming in the d6 square, defending everything. We are simply up a pawn, I think, in this line. Let's say 1, 2, 3, and 4, 7, and yeah, we are up a pawn. So that covers the move 2 knights variation of the Caro Kann. Okay, in the next class we are going to see Caro Kann as white, how to deal with Caro Kann from the white side. Okay, hope you enjoyed today's class. Thank you for watching. Bye for now.